Let's talk about Jon Jones and why he's not ducking Tom Aspinall. Right, so let's start off at the beginning. And I know everyone's going to say that the start was during the Stipe and Jones fight. But I think that's just a nonsensical argument, right? Jones was contracted to fight Stipe. He had that unfortunate injury. He was still contracted to fight Stipe. It just made no sense to ditch Stipe and then fight Aspinall. It just made no sense to me. This is where really the saga started. And what Jones says here starts a precedent. So we'll just have a listen.
My life is perfect without him. I don't need him at all. And he needs me. And that's a good place to be in a negotiation.
So this clip was obviously after he said that he will only take FU money, right, to fight Aspinall. But when Jones is talking about wanting big money to take the fight, I think that says a lot about what he actually thinks of Tom Aspinall. Jones has made it very clear that he does not find the Aspinall fight an exciting fight, right? And it's pretty clear in these tweets. He says, I don't want to say that I'm retired because fighting is in my blood right now. I could care less about fighting. I've been doing it my whole life at a very high level, and if it comes back, then I'll do it with my whole heart. Aspinall is not in a position to excite me. It's just the truth, because if I whoop his ass, it's going to be the next guy. There's going to be a whole new fan base of somebody that everybody believes in. So Jones obviously does not find the Aspinall fight exciting, right? And he's willing to retire and walk away from it. He's made that very clear. And one thing I think the fans need to understand is that Jones is not the guy who cares about what the fan base think about him, right? He's not excited about the Aspinall fight. If you want to go back in time, you want to talk about the whole thing that happened with DC, he openly talked about drinking and cocaine the week before taking the DC fight. When everyone was calling him out for his eye pokes and being a dirty fighter, he just made a video mocking those kind of people. He's always had a big ego, out wrestling Chael Sonnen, out wrestling DC, out clinch fighting, Glover Teixeira. He always tries to outdo his opponents at what they're good at. So he doesn't care about what the fans think about him. The way I see it, Jones trying to appease the fans makes no sense for me, right? Remember Bilal Muhammad? He said he wanted to show everyone his Canelo hands and that he wasn't a boring fighter and that he'd be able to stand up with JDM, and look what happened, right? Everyone praised him, 10 minutes or so after the fight. And the day right after, everyone forgot about him or just started going back to mocking him. We've seen Jones struggle with motivation for fights which he just don't interest him, right? The Dominic Reyes fight, the press conference leading into the Reyes fight, Jones looked bored. He looked bored, he looked fatigued. He just looked like he did not care about that fight. So imagine a Jon Jones now, who's 38 years of age, right? He's done it all, the greatest of all time. He'd have even less of a reason to take the Aspinall fight. Another point is that Jon Jones does not think that Tom Aspinall is that good. And I agree, right? So just hear me out. The heavyweight division is absolutely pants. It's terrible. It's an aging division. Heavyweights, the biomechanics behind their bodies, right? It causes them to move slow. They all solely rely on power to win fights. The technical floor of the heavyweights is so low that the only reason people watch the fights is because they're waiting for an impending knockout. You look at the rankings here, right? You've got number 10, you've got Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is literally known for just standing back up to his feet, using no technique after he gets taken down. That should tell you about the technical flaw of the heavyweights. You've got guys like Pavlovich. They were showing him shadow boxing or on the beach, saying, oh, he's the one to beat Jon Jones. All the heavyweights, right, they're overweight. They all rely on power. They just lack technical ability, right? We talk about how bad some of the women's fight looks, right? The heavyweights, they look worse. As soon as Gan or Aspinall comes around, right, where they have speed, they don't look like they're walking in mud, straight away they go to the top of the division. When it's just the smallest amount of technical ability and you're the top of that division. And Aspinall I think everyone's overrating him a tad bit, right? He's knocking everyone out in the first round. He blitzes in, chin super high in the air, and he's fighting tin cans in the heavyweight division. I don't think he's that good. All the heavyweights are so bad that as soon as a guy with a bit of natural ability comes along, he's the best. Just have a look at this, right? And the reason I'm showing you this is because everyone says, oh, heavyweight division, this is one of the most entertaining divisions. Well, this was the last fight, heavyweight fight, to win UFC Fight of the Night bonus. Cyril Gane versus Tuivasa. When was the last time we saw Gane fight? Was it against Jones? I think it was. Only 2 heavyweight fights have won Fight of the Night bonuses in this decade. There have been 231 UFC events since the beginning of 2020. I am telling you, the UFC heavyweight division is absolute shite. The reason I showed the clip at the start of the video about Jones talking about being happy to walk away is because yesterday we've had clips from podcasts about Jones being happy to step away, right? And this is where we go into why I believe it's actually the UFC's fault that the fight has not happened yet and not Jones's. So have a listen.
Funny guy, and there's a lot of things that's happening behind the scenes where my job is just sit and be still and take the punishment.
Don't you think maybe the fans
Sit there and be still and take the punishment. Lots of things happening behind the scenes. Right, this is what I think is happening. Right, I think the UFC are stalling. Jones has made it clear that he does not want to fight. Have a look at this tweet, right? I spoke to the UFC a long time ago about what my future plans were. I haven't really worked out since my last fight in New York City. That's pretty much telling you, I'm done. I don't want to fight anymore, alright? Honestly, I believe it's been the UFC's best interest to keep presenting me as the company's champion. This, alongside this, about him talking about what's going on behind the scenes, we're going to get into it because it's a big reason as to why I believe it's the UFC's fault and not Jones's fault. I've been playing the role of the company man by doing nothing at all and holding the position. And truthfully, it's been incredibly lucrative. I've made more money off of Tom being the interim champ than Taz himself, which is crazy, by the way. It sucks to see the rest of the division get slowed down like this, but that has nothing to do with me. I don't pull the strings. Now this is super significant, right? Because Jones is actively telling everyone that, look, he's not interested in the fight anymore, right? And also he's alluding to the fact that it's not his fault and that it's someone else's fault. This is what Dana White said in March, that the fight is 100% happening.
Read it. I told you guys already. We'll get Aspinall versus Jones done. Jon Jones versus the heavyweight fight will happen. Just relax. I'll announce that soon.
And then you've also got Dana saying that it's still going to happen 2 months later in May. And I need you to stick with me, right, on all the points that I made, because we're going to get to the part of the reason as to why I still think it's the UFC's fault. So after seeing all the tweets and clips from the podcast, Jones has made it very clear he does not want to fight Tom Aspinall. So what does Dana say? He says that he's going to try to get the fight over the line in the next couple of weeks. And if not, then we'll move on quickly. So you tell me why, after tweets like this, right, where it's very clear that Jones just does not want to fight, why has the UFC not stripped Jon Jones? He's already said that he does not want to fight. On top of that, they allowed him to go off to the Russian Ultimate Fighter, right, and be a head coach. They could have stripped him then. It would have been justified. But instead, they wanted to draw this out solely because of this broadcast deal negotiations. I believe that it's in the UFC's best interest to keep Jon Jones as champion, because having Jon Jones as your champion is more appealing to any broadcast when it comes to platform UFC. The way I see it, right, UFC does not have that many stars anymore, right? They've got Jon Jones, maybe a Makachev, Topuria, he's obviously on the rise. Sean O'Malley kind of really, but he's just lost. But Jon Jones is very much the guy. If you don't have Jon Jones as champion, right, or even in the UFC, I believe that it makes platforming the UFC a lot less appealing. And going back to this video where he's talking about that there's a lot happening behind the scenes, I believe he's talking about the deal. And I think, personally, right, I could be wrong, right, but this is what I think, this is my opinion, that they've told Jon Jones that they want him to stay as champion. And they want him to stay as champion because of the whole negotiations with the different networks. And I said that his job is just to sit and be still and take the punishment. And that's exactly what's happening, right? Everyone's kind of their eyes away from the UFC and onto him. They've literally turned him into a scapegoat. All the hate that should be directed at UFC because the fight's not happened. In fact, I don't even think that they had any intention to book the fight early whatsoever. I think the fight was always going to be slated to MSG. That's what I believe. Dana talking about the fight will 100% be happening. They didn't agree to a date. They didn't, no contract. Right, all he had was Jones's word. And then those months that followed, Jones went on to the Ultimate Fighter. He put out tweets like this one, which we just read, where he was talking about he hadn't trained since the Miocic fight. He was going to he came to the UK, he went to the Philippines, he was training, running lectures for students. That entire time, they could have stripped him, but they chose not to. Don't believe them when they say, oh, Jones verbally agreed to the fight and that's why we're not stripping him. I think that's bollocks. I think that's absolute bollocks. They wanted the fight to happen earlier, right? Then why did it not happen? Jones doesn't choose when he's gonna fight, at which event he's gonna fight at. That's down to the UFC. Instead of Topuria versus the Bronx, right? We could have had Jones versus Aspinall, International Fight Week, but we didn't. If the UFC really wanted that fight to happen, say International Fight Week in next month in July or August, whatever, you think that they would have agreed to deal with Jones, given him a contract, and if he still said no, they would have stripped him. They had no intention of making the fight until probably MSG, and I believe personally that the UFC have used Jon Jones as a scapegoat. It's clear as day to me. He says there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. My job is just to sit and be still and take the punishment. So all the fans are directing all the hate to Jones and none of it onto UFC. Although I think now Cormier has come out and said that the UFC needs to strip Jones. And I believe Mighty Mouse just made a video recently saying that the UFC needs to strip Jones. What's even crazier to me, right, is that if you lot remember, one of the post-event pressers, Dana White came out and said, Jon Jones has always been someone super difficult to deal with. Yet White said that it's 100% happening based on a verbal agreement from a man he said is very difficult to agree with. That alone should be enough for the fans to jump on the back of the UFC and Dana White. They've essentially told the fans, right, that this fight is 100% going to happen based on a verbal agreement. It's a shambles. A verbal agreement from a fighter who's notoriously difficult to deal with. So that's what I think. Anyway, I think I made some good points. I think it's pretty clear to see that the UFC are the ones at fault. And look, you can't force a man to fight, which is why I don't think Jones is a duck, right? If someone does not want to fight and is talking about retirement, then that person is not a duck. He doesn't see Aspinall as someone who adds to his legacy. We're talking about a 38-year-old fighter who's already done it all and is already the greatest of all time. It's not a fight that motivates him, and I think that's fair. Jones has never been the kind of person to care about what fans think. And even when he's made his stance clear, the fans are still piling up on him. As opposed to the UFC, who were the ones who were supposed to get this fight done a long time ago. Yet they decided to keep the fans in the dark. But that's all I've got to say on the matter. Let me know what you lot think in the comments. And we can have a little discussion down there.